this section will be on autonomous transportation, what it is, how it's done. So firstly, we'll go over why do we even want autonomous transportation. Well, there are three factors in my opinion: safety, equality, and sustainability. And firstly, safety is important, obviously in all things that you're doing, and especially in traffic as you do it daily. And a lot of the accidents are caused by human errors, uh, and these could all be avoided if a system is doing it instead of a human. So you can imagine a truck driver watching the same road for 8 hours is quite boring, and you might get drowsy or just look at your phone for a quick bit. But then you compare it to a vehicle, which a robot that is designed to be persistent, and just looking at it, no matter how dull it is to do it, it will do it consistently. And however, this introduces new errors of software bugs and cybersecurity threats, and the robot can misunderstand something that a human would understand. If there's a glance in the camera, it can a human can understand that this is just the sun, and I just need to tilt my head a bit, but the robot won't understand that. And then we don't know how risky these software bugs and cybersecurity threats are, but nonetheless, they are a much bigger issue with autonomous vehicles than ones that are operated manually. Then secondly, we have this equality. So compared to having manually driven cars, it's more accessible and convenient for everyone, so that even people with disabilities, for example, if you're blind, it's easier to get around with autonomous vehicles, and it should be more affordable as at also because you don't need the driver, as the driver itself is quite expensive if you're thinking about robotic taxis versus taxis which have a driver. But then again, this means that it's displacing drivers, and it could have a negative impact on public transportation, so that everyone is just riding with their own robotic taxi alone. Whereas right now we have these buses where people go like 70 people to one bus, which is very good for the environment, for example. And then we have a lot of jobs for these drivers, but I guess they could have then different sorts of jobs. But these are just things that you need to consider as moving towards autonomous transportation. There's no absolute answers to them, but just sort of things you need to consider. Then, as I already sort of referenced a bit, was this sustainability. Uh, it's more energy efficient because the autonomous cars won't get frustrated, or they don't need to consider the driving style as much as humans do, because they're just programmed to do it as energy efficiently as they can, and they should then, at least in theory, avoid traffic jams much more, because a lot of the phenomena that are involved with a traffic jam has to do with people getting annoyed, uh, in comparison. If the vehicles can talk to each other in real time, it will make the traffic much smoother. And then we have a greater potential of going full electric, as the car itself can know when and where is the best time to charge it. Whereas right now, if you're buying an electric car, you need to take care of all of that yourself. And however, this could lead to, since it's so convenient and so easy, you can do everything that you want while in a car, and it's so easy to go across the town, across the city with these sort of cars. Maybe you will use a car much more than you're using right now. You will change from using your bike, instead using a car, so that could have a negative impact on sustainability or environmental impacts. And then it is a serious concern, this increased computing for autonomous control, because at the moment, laser scanners, so radars, and machine vision and all that needs a lot of computing power, and that actually needs quite some electricity. We have some calculations on that in the course, so it shouldn't be an issue in the future, as at the moment autonomous vehicles are more like prototypes, but it's something that really needs to be considered in the environmental aspect. Okay, so at the very core of autonomous driving or autonomy of a vehicle is this driving task that is split into three parts: perception, route plan, and control. And firstly, you need to perceive as a car. So this Volvo right here, it needs to perceive, okay, I'm on the right lane. There is a motorcycle or something, let's say something to the left and behind of me. The speed limit is 90 kilometers per hour, and so you need to perceive all of these things. And once you have done that, then you also have a route plan, sort of where are you going. And for example, a part of that plan could be switching lanes. And then what is then this vehicle mechatronics control, the part that we're really interested that builds on these two, is then we need to have a reference of the road plan, what do we want to do, and then we compare that to the things that we're perceiving. And then we control the longitudinal, so the brakes, acceleration and brakes, and then lateral, so steering, in order to achieve the road plan. So that the road plan and the perception of the current moment would be the same, or as close as possible to that. So let's go over a bit about perception. Here we have a picture of an Uber that they use this Ford Fusion, I think, and so on top they have a LiDAR, which is light detection and ranging thing, that detects the distance 360 degrees, and then you have a global positioning system that tracks that every one of you have in your smartphone. Then you could have machine vision, and then even though you have a LiDAR, you still might want to have a radar that works with radio waves, so radio detection and ranging, or sonar, sound navigation and ranging, just because they're much cheaper and you can place them in places that are very essential. So you don't want to bump your car to another one, and the LiDAR is not seeing it as accurately and from the same height. So that's why there is this radar here. So that was a little bit about what are the things that this car has. But then the perception can be thought of in a way of what are the objects that you are perceiving. So static objects such as buildings, roads, and signs, those that don't move, but you need to know where they are so you won't hit them, and also just recognizing what's in the signs. Then you have dynamic objects that are more uncertain or completely uncertain, that you have vehicles, bicycles, and pedestrians that you can predict what they're doing, but it's never guaranteed. So those are the much trickier than the static objects. And then you have an ego vehicle, which is just the name of the vehicle that is your autonomous car in any situation. So if you're considering a situation of your car, which is autonomous, in this case, the robotic car that you're developing is coming to an intersection, then you're saying that the ego vehicle is coming to the intersection, and then there might be another vehicle coming from the left or so. So this is just a term used in this field. Then you're perceiving things such as location, distance, and then also detection and classification of things. So if, let's say that the location, so internal measurement unit that sort of keeps track of the odometry of your vehicle, so sort of the speed and acceleration of it and position, but it's not as accurate as global positioning system because there's always some uh, mm, drift. So it's never completely accurate, but it works well with combining the IMU and GPS. So, okay, you perceive your location in the middle of the road in your lane, and then you note that there's some distance to an object in front of you. You notice that it's moving, it's a dynamic object. Okay, it's a pedestrian, or it could be a bicycle or a pedestrian. Well, how do you figure that out? Then you have detection and classification with machine vision, MV. That is the sort of final step of this perception final layer, is to then classify what it is actually in front of you. And then you have sensor fusion, which is the combination, as I was saying about the IMU, GPS, and LiDAR. They can all work together, as then the uncertainty of measurements are much less because you get the confirmation from two different places, and that is used a lot in the perception of autonomous vehicles. Then secondly, you have this road plan. So it can be you have three different sort of layers again about this route plan. First, you have the long-term plan. So let's say that you have this, you put on Google Maps that you're living from Otaniemi and going to Helsinki city center, or from home to work. This is the sort of the big plan, sort of what is the best road to go there. But then parts of that long-term plan consist of short-term plans, such as, is it safe to change a lane, or you know that you need to change a lane because let's say this left lane soon will in the intersection it will continue to the left, so you need to do that in order to complete your long-term trip. So these are the sort of short-term plans that make up the whole long-term plan. And then you have the short-term plan is consisting of immediate actions, such as, you need to accelerate or brake and how much, you need to steer, how much at what point. This part is very reactive, and these are more sort of predetermined, or a plan that is more done beforehand, and then this last layer is taking care of, okay, if something happens suddenly, what should we do then? Lastly, we had perception and path plan. So how do we get to the our car to execute the path plan that we have laid out is control, and somehow using perception so that we can get to that path plan. So control consists of three things again. The nice rule of three helps here. So you have lateral control, which is steering, so you go left or right. And in modern cars, you have, for example, lane keeping assistant that will keep you on your lane. And then you have longitudinal control, which is basically sort of how much you accelerate or decelerate, or do you keep this speed. And you have cruise control that takes care of you would stay in that stick to that one speed no matter if there's a hill, uphill or downhill. And then you have adaptive cruise control, which means that if there is a car in front of you, you can set your cruise control to 80 kilometers per hour. But if the car in front of you is driving 70 kilometers per hour, you can set on the adaptive cruise control that you keep a distance of, let's say, 20 meters to that preceding car, and you will also your car would then also slow down to 70 kilometers per hour. It's taking a rule of keep this distance if there's something forward, or if there's no one in front, then do the normal cruise control. And lastly, there's object and event detection and reaction, OEDR. It's quite the weird acronym, but this is somehow quite standardized or official, so that's why I'm using that. So lastly is obviously like these first two work well if there's no one else using the roads. There's only static objects. There could be some dynamic stuff going on as well, but you really need this last layer in order to achieve full autonomy. Uh, so if there's a pedestrian right up front, stop, and if you see a green light, then you go. This is why with only the lateral and longitudinal control you couldn't have full autonomy, because neither of them can detect a green light, for example. Then a term that is used a lot in the control of autonomous car is teleoperation, which means that you control the vehicle manually with a remote controller. It can be a phone or an RC car kind of a controller, or then you control it with a computer or something like that from your laptop. But this is just a term that is used commonly in the field that you should know of. Okay, then lastly of this part of the lecture, I will introduce the levels of automation. These are introduced in the SAE J3016 standard in the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration report that are referenced all around the world, even though this is an American thing. So there are 5 levels of automation. You could say that there's also the 0 level, which is no automation at all. But the first level is you have driving assistance. So you either have longitudinal or lateral control automated. So you don't need to do anything. Either you have adaptive cruise control or lane keeping assistance. Then the next level is that you have partial autonomy, that you have these both. So your car can keep you on the lane and adjust the speed according to your cruise control, and also like if there's someone in front of you, it will adjust the speed accordingly. So our lab car, a Ford Focus, has level 2 autonomy. Then there is third level autonomy, that is that the vehicle can do it all. It also has this OEDR, object detection and reaction to that. But the driver must be alert at all times and handle emergency situations. So this is where I see that Tesla is struggling a lot with, since drivers are not alert, and only that leads to most of the accidents, even though there are much less accidents with these level 3 autopilot Teslas than ones that don't have it. But still, this is making the news constantly, as at the moment drivers still need to be alert and take control if needed. Then there would be level 4, which I have highlighted these smaller crossed line, which means that the driver can be asked for attention, but you could, for example, sleep in your car, and then the car could ask that, okay, in 1 minute, there is something I need to ask. Do we want to do this or that? Should we use this route or that one? Or there's a traffic construction site. Maybe we should go around that. What do you think? That sort of a thing. So it's very high autonomy level, and at that point, driver is still needed, but there's no not as much responsibility on the driver. And lastly, we have full autonomy that handles the car completely, so that there's no need for a driver whatsoever.